He held her captive, offered her millions, but what he truly wanted couldn't be bought. The ending will leave you completely bamboozled. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another thrilling movie journey with us. Get comfortable as we give you a complete and unfiltered breakdown of this popular Nigerian movie packed with valuable morals and hidden lessons. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe. There are so many exciting movie treats coming your way. Now, grab your popcorn and let me take you through this unforgettable experience. The movie opens with a handsome young man named Chris enjoying himself at a club. Suddenly, two beautiful young ladies, Tana and Oluchi, walk in. Tana quickly becomes uncomfortable with the club's atmosphere and suggests to Oluchi that they should leave. Oluchi, however, refuses. Meanwhile, Chris notices them and instructs his bodyguard to bring a bottle of wine and 2 glasses for the ladies. When Oluchi steps out for a moment, Chris walks over to Tana's table, whispers something in her ear, and they share a kiss as if they've known each other for a while. But just as suddenly, Tana pulls away and slaps Chris in front of his bodyguard. And Oluchi, who sees everything from a distance, is left completely shocked. Back at home, Oluchi confronts Tana about her behavior. Tana, instead of explaining, blames Oluchi for dragging her to the club in the first place. They both head upstairs without resolving the issue. On the other side, Chris is seen reflecting deeply on what had happened that night. The next day, Tana is about to leave the house when Oluchi stops her to discuss the previous night's incident. Tana admits that she and Chris shared a kiss, but when Oluchi asks if she enjoyed it, Tana refuses to answer. Meanwhile, Chris is seen preparing to drive out and gives an instruction to his bodyguard. Later that day, a frustrated Tana returns home after a failed attempt at job hunting. Oluchi suggests a temporary job opportunity as a cocktail waitress for a private poker game that evening. Tana accepts. That night, Chris is at the poker game with his friends when Tana walks in to serve them drinks. As she turns to leave, Chris recognizes her from the club and mocks her in front of everyone. Feeling embarrassed, Tana quickly pours the wine for him and rushes out. Back at home, she tells Oluchi she has been fired from the job and explains what happened. The following day, Chris shows up at Oluchi's house and offers her 2 million naira to convince Tana to meet with him at a specific location. Oluchi refuses the offer at first. Chris then raises the amount to 5 million naira. This time, Oluchi agrees, but on the condition that her involvement stays anonymous. They sign an agreement, Chris transfers the money and leaves. That night, as Oluchi and Tana are browsing an online store on Oluchi's phone, Oluchi brings up a house party scheduled for the next day and urges Tana to go with her. Tana declines at first, but after Oluchi's constant persuasion, she finally agrees reluctantly. The next night, Tana is standing at a particular location when a black SUV arrives. 2 muscular men dressed in black step out and forcefully take her away to an unknown destination. Later that same night, Tana wakes up with a slight headache and is surprised to see Chris sitting next to her. Confused, she asks why she's in a strange place. Chris responds coldly, saying he couldn't let her go after what she did to him. When Tana tries to leave, Chris warns her that the door will remain locked unless she agrees to his terms. This marks the beginning of a strange and intense game. The next morning, Tana wakes up and tries to leave again. Chris formally introduces himself and accuses her of bruising his ego. Angry, Tana walks to the door, only to find it locked. Chris refuses to release her and walks away. He then goes to the living room and instructs his bodyguard, Tagbo, to make sure Tana is served breakfast and to prepare to take her shopping. Later on, Chris approached Tana to ask why she had refused to eat. Tana responded that she was being held against her will and treated like a prisoner, even being served food as though she were in captivity. Chris became upset and yelled, asking her if she realized how many women would do anything to be in her position. He then invited her to go out with him, but she declined. That evening, Chris invited Tana to dinner, promising that she would be free to leave her room afterward. He then walked away. At the dining table, Chris asked Tana what her first impression of him had been. Tana remained silent. Chris then shared his first impression of her, complimenting her and telling her how beautiful her lips were. At that moment, Tana leaned forward as if to kiss him, but pulled back at the last second. Remember, Chris, this is still a game. The next morning, Chris appeared without a shirt, clearly trying to impress Tana by showing off his well-built body. He teased her about what she was missing, just before his bodyguard interrupted them. The following day, one of Chris's colleagues came to visit him at home. He informed Chris that the investors had decided not to close the deal because Chris wasn't married. The colleague advised him to either get a girlfriend or hire an actress to play the role of his wife. Meanwhile, at her apartment, Oluchi was getting worried because she hadn't heard from Tana in several days. Later that day, Chris was still stressed about the situation at work when Tagbo, his bodyguard, approached him with a suggestion. He advised Chris to ask his guest, Tana, to act as his wife so he could secure the business deal. Wow, the big question now is, will Tana agree to play the role of his wife? Let's find out. That night, Chris approached Tana and asked her to pretend to be his wife for the sake of the deal. She refused. Chris then offered her 10% of the deal's profits. Tana, however, made her own demands. She asked for her freedom, a proper apology from Chris, and 20% of the deal's profits. Chris apologized sincerely and pleaded with her to help him. The next morning, Chris thanked Tana for agreeing to act as his contract wife. He informed her that they were going to the office that morning and brought 2 outfits for her to choose from. Later, Chris waited in the living room until Tana appeared, looking stunning in a purple dress. He then slipped a ring on her finger, and they left together. Later that day, Tana approached Chris to discuss their plan. She wanted to clarify what she should say when people started asking questions. As they talked, they both leaned in for a kiss, but once again, Tana pulled away. That night, Tana reflected on everything that had happened and asked herself what she was getting into. At the same time, Chris was also thinking deeply about the situation. He walked toward Tana's room to knock, but stopped himself and returned to his room. Coincidentally, Tana came out of her room, intending to knock on Chris's door, but also went back inside. Chris then came out again, but like before, turned around and went back. Aha! Is this tough guy falling head over heels for a pretty woman, or is it all still part of the game? Let's find out together. Later that night, Tana went to the fridge to get a drink when Chris joined her. He invited her to watch a movie with him, and she agreed. While watching, they both fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, Chris brought Tana breakfast. He noticed she was holding her back and asked her what was wrong. Tana explained that her back hurt from sleeping on the couch. Chris offered to give her a massage. She initially refused, but after some convincing, she agreed on the condition that there would be no funny business. Later on, Chris and Tana went to his room, and Tana was surprised to find it decorated like a honeymoon suite. She turned to leave, but Chris persuaded her to stay. Meanwhile, Chris's colleague was getting frustrated because Chris wasn't returning his calls. Back in the room, Chris began to massage Tana. He kissed her back, and she reminded him of their agreement, no funny business. Chris then leaned in for a kiss, but just at that moment, his bodyguard knocked and interrupted them. In his living room, Chris was furious that his colleague had ruined his day. However, the colleague informed him that the investor wanted to meet him and his mysterious wife for dinner that very night. Later that same day, Chris found Tana packing her belongings, ready to leave. He tried to convince her to stay, but she was determined to go. When he mentioned that the investor insisted on meeting his supposed wife, Tana agreed, but only for that night. That evening, during dinner with the investor, Tana was asked why she had chosen Chris. She replied that Chris had stolen her heart and that she now felt like a prisoner to him. Chris added that Tana was a hard nut to crack. The two of them expressed their love for each other and shared a kiss, leaving the investor quite impressed. After the investor left, Tana began packing again. Chris pleaded with her to stay, but she insisted on going. He then asked for her phone number before she walked out. That same night, Tana returned home exhausted. She walked past Oluchi without saying a word and went straight to her room. Meanwhile, both Tana and Chris were shown lying in their beds, restless and unable to sleep. The next morning, Chris's bodyguard acknowledged that Chris had spent the previous night in the room where Tana had stayed. He then encouraged Chris to go after her. Elsewhere, Oluchi was worried about the growing distance between her and Tana. Suddenly, Chris arrived. Oluchi welcomed him and attempted to seduce him, trying to have a bite of the bad boy. But but Chris turned her down. Just then, Tana walked in. Chris asked to speak with her privately, but Oluchi interrupted and exposed everything, revealing that Chris had paid her 5 million naira to help win Tana over. Shocked, Tana turned to Chris and asked if it was true. As Chris tried to explain, Tana slapped him again and told him to leave. Instead, Chris lifted Tana in his arms and carried her to her room. There, holding her tightly, he admitted defeat and told her that he truly wanted to be with her. They kissed, but afterward, Tana still asked him to leave. The next day, Chris was drinking alone when his friend visited. The friend asked about Tana, and Chris confessed that he had fallen for her after playing a risky game just to satisfy his own ego. Meanwhile, Tana ended her friendship with Oluchi, deeply hurt by the betrayal. Oluchi had sold her out for 5 million naira. Weeks later, Tana was having a drink at a restaurant when Chris appeared at her table. He sincerely confessed his feelings, telling her that she had changed him and helped him realize she was different from any woman he'd known. In response, Tana asked him to kiss her. They shared a passionate kiss and began a beautiful love story together. This story teaches that love built on manipulation and lies may struggle, but genuine repentance, honesty, and emotional vulnerability can lead to redemption and healing. It also shows that betrayal, especially by someone close, can be devastating. But setting boundaries and standing up for yourself is a form of self-respect. In the end, true love can emerge even from the most unexpected circumstances, but only if it's built on truth. Thank you for joining us for this very exciting episode. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification bell for more fascinating and entertaining stories like this. Until we meet again, goodbye.